Hey everyone, it's Greg and welcome back to another Dice Throne Talk. We had a request for the Shadow Thief. So that is what I'm doing now, and we are going to be diving in a little bit about him, some strategy tips, guidelines. I have not played Shadow Thief a whole lot. The reason why is because Michaela loves playing him, so I don't play them, but I see Michaela play him quite a bit and have a reasonable understanding of how he works and what you want to do with him. Overall, he is a 5 complexity, so you probably don't want to start with him right out of the gate. If you haven't already, check out my what to buy first for Dice Throne and Dice Throne Adventures if you had questions about whether or not you wanted to get him. However, if you think he looks really cool and if you want to get him first, then by all means. But he is a more complex character overall. His dice pool will reflect that quite a bit. He has 1 and 2 are daggers, 3 and 4 are bags, 5 is a card, and 6 is a shadow. So here are his different dice, and they're kind of like Joker dice, Joker coloration, I could say. I really like it quite a bit. One of my more favorite dice, maybe not my most favorite overall, but still good dice overall. But you can see why he has a little bit more harder rolls is because he has 1, 2, 3, 4 different options for dice, which can be a little bit more tricky to use overall. Let's check out his abilities before we get into his actual attack abilities. So first one here is Shadows. It's a positive stats effect for him, and it's a stack limit of 1, which is very important. And a player that has this token avoids damage. However, when a player with this token is damaged as a result of an opponent's offensive roll phase, no damage is received and no defense is made. However, you could still be poisoned, you could still be have all these status effects on you, you just don't receive damage. Now this is the important part. Discard this token after the affected player starts and concludes a single turn while under its effects. So unless you start your turn having this status effect on you, you do not remove it at the end of your turn or your opponent's turn. You will only remove it at the end of your turn when you conclude it, when you start with it. So keep that in mind as we go through these different effects. The next one here is Sneak Attack. Positive status effect, stack limit of 1 yet again. And it's actually pretty powerful overall, similar to the Gunslinger's Reload ability. After attacking, a player with this token may spend it and roll 1 die to add the value of that die to the damage total and its attack modifier. So it says after attacking, not at the conclusion of the offensive roll phase or anything like that. It says after attacking, spend it, roll a die. So it can be pretty powerful overall. Your card modifiers will affect it. So if you want to do a 6-it, So Wild, Tip It, anything like that, you definitely could do it because it is during your offensive roll phase. And then lastly is Poison, which is a stack limit of 3. You have Bleeds that are stack limit of 2s. You have Burns stack limit of 1. So Poison stack limit of 3 is pretty good. You almost have to try to really force those poisons on continuously to hit that stack limit, but it's always nice to put on your opponent. The person who has the poison token receives 1 damage during their upkeep phase. And it's not, you can't roll for it. There's no defensive roll for that. It's just start of the upkeep phase, take a damage. So that is the Shadow Thief status effect abilities. So let's go ahead and talk about his different abilities overall. The first one here is Dagger Strike. It was really nice overall. Can deal up to 8 damage. If you roll a bag, instead of rolling 5 complete daggers, you can gain a CP, which is nice. And if you, instead of rolling all 5 daggers, you roll 4 and then a 6, inflict poison as well, which is pretty good. And when we look at his upgrade ability here, it's called Dagger Strike 2, and it is 0 CP, which still invigorates me to this day, but it's fine overall. The only difference is if a card was rolled, you get to draw a card as well, and then you automatically gain 1 CP, still same damage. So overall, that's a really nice go-to roll. If you roll in, a lot of daggers right out of the gate, that's what you can do. Next here is pickpocket, and based on the amount of bags that you roll, you gain a certain CP. Now, if you roll a 6, up to 1 of the CP may instead be stolen from your opponent. Now, if your opponent doesn't have any CP, you still gain the receiving amount. You still gain 4 if you rolled 4 bags. Now, if they have any CP, you then would take 1 of them from them. The upgrade here, pickpocket 2, up to 2 CP instead of 1. And then you have the option of rolling 5 bags to gain 6 CP. That is a lot of CP. You'll definitely get your dividends out of it. It's only a cost of 1 CP to play. And that is extremely nice considering you play it for 1. Next turn, you roll 5 bags and you get 6 CP out of it. You could steal some CP as well. Absolutely very good card for him because he likes CP. The reason why he likes CP so much is because these next 2 abilities, the small straight and the large straight. The small straight, shifty strike, gain 3 CP, deal half a CP as damage. Important to note there, it says gain 3 CP, then deal half damage of your CP as damage. So you get to gain that first. Next, you have the large straight, gain 3 CP, then deal CP as damage. The CP overall, the maximum you can go in Dice Throne is 15. So if you can deal 15 damage plus sneak attack plus any additional damage modifiers, you can do a load of damage, and it's not even your ultimate ability. You want to gain CP quickly, and you want to gain a lot of it as quickly as you can. So if you can go for pickpocket early on, then go for just your straights really overall, you are going to be in a very good position. So definitely go for those straights. These are the upgrades overall for your small straight and your large straight. You're going to see that they add an additional attack ability as well. Highly recommend upgrading these. They're only 2 CP each. However, they both gain 4 CP instead of 3. And down here, dealing half CP as damage, inflicting poison, gaining CP, gain sneak attack, draw a card, inflict poison. That is a whole lot of ability right there. Highly recommend upgrading these 2. Either a one-on-one or in Dice Throne Adventures. Very strong abilities. Next, you have Shadow Dance. Roll a die, deal half the value as pure damage. That is very unique, I would say, in Dice Throne Adventures. And I don't know if anyone else really has pure damage that I can think of. I know Pyromancer has collateral damage, but I cannot think of anyone else having pure damage. And just to remind people of what pure damage is, it's not defendable. It is avoidable, meaning that you can spend evasive tokens, flight tokens. You can also use not this time, what have you. It is not enhanceable, and there's no special targeting rules. So it's just a pure roll a die. That's what it's going to be. You can't use sneak attack on it. What's really nice about this ability is that it gains shadows and sneak attack. The upgrade is 1 CP. The only difference is you draw a card as well, which is nice. There's other ways to do that. If you were hurting on upgrades or hurting on CP, I may sell that one just because it's not a huge game changer. However, Shadow Thief does like drawing a lot of cards. However, there's another way to draw cards, and that's just pure cornucopia. If I needed to draw a whole lot of cards because I only had 1 or none, cornucopia would probably be a better way to go about that to get a lot more cards quickly rather than just doing 1. However, with Shadow Dance, you gain Shadows and Sneak Attack, which are fantastic abilities. Shadows is extremely powerful and highly recommend getting it whenever you can. based on the situation overall. Important to note here though, if you had shadows already, so let's say you have shadows, you started your turn with shadows and you did shadow dance. You do not gain shadows because you already have shadows. Shadows is a stack limit of 1. Therefore, you would pretty much waste this ability in terms of gaining shadows, especially if you had sneak attack as well, because you want to gain them because you already have them. They have a stack limit of 1. That's why I would go with the Cornucopia if I had those effects on me. And then at the end of my turn, shadows goes away. End of my turn, shadows goes away because I started my turn. Now, let's say I didn't have shadows, I have shadow dance, then I would gain it. Boom. At the end of my turn, it still stays on my board. The opponent goes, whether that be one-on-one or Dice Throne Adventures. And then when it's my turn again, I have now started my turn with shadows. I complete my turn, and then at the end of my turn, I get rid of it. Now, there's different ways to kind of almost loophole it a little bit, because let's say you had what status effects or bye-bye, whatever it may be. You could bye it, get rid of it so that status effect is gone. You roll for Shadow Dance, boom, it comes back, and now you have shadows for another turn. So you could use those get rid of status effects to help it out if you are struggling with, let's say, someone like Barbarian who likes to deal a lot of damage. And that is one way to just completely nullify that amount of damage overall. And then next we have Cornucopia. The upgrade is a little bit better overall, just because it lets you do a little bit more for 2 CP. You can draw a card for each card that you roll. And then if 6 was rolled, your opponent discards a card randomly. If a bag was rolled, gain a CP. Just a whole lot more. If you had it early on, then it'd probably be more so to play it. If you had it late on in the game, probably more of a sell, just because you're not going to need those cards as much. Your CP should be up. I wouldn't worry as much. Something else that is also very unique to Shadow Thief is defense. He has 2 defenses, and when you start your defensive roll phase, you must declare to the opponent what defense you are using. Now, it's pretty easy on initially, because your Shadow defense is a 4 dice and Counter Strike is 5. So if opponent rolls 5 dice and nothing has been upgraded, obviously it's Counter Strike. If it's 4 dice, obviously it is Shadow defense. Shadow defense is pretty much your go-to, honestly, overall. A lot of times you don't need to do the Counter Strike unless you're working on that poison game. However, you can still get poisoned with 2 daggers, sneak attack with a 6, or 2 6s, gain sneak attack and shadows immediately, ignoring incoming damage. Shadow defense is the way to go, honestly, overall. Now, if I'm playing Dice Throne Adventures and a minion only has 1 or 2 health left, I might roll for that. I would probably roll for that Counter Strike. Reason being is because I can defeat that minion on the defensive turn. I definitely do that, unless that minion is dealing a lot of damage that it would kill me or hurt me significantly. Then I might roll for those 4. It kind of depends on the situation, the minion, level of the minion, where you're at in the portal crawl. A lot of factors to go into it. However, there will be reasons to roll that Counter Strike without a doubt. But Shadow defense is definitely your go-to. In terms of upgrades, for Counter Strike, it's really good overall. In terms of dealing 1 damage, it's 2. And then you're still inflicting poison. The caveat is that this is an extremely expensive card. If I just had CP going left and right and it was stuff was being wasted, like I was just gaining CP but I was already maxed out, then I might play this card. But at that time it'd be late in the game anyways. A lot of Dice Throne Adventure minions may do undefendable damage, which means you would use 4 CP to maybe use it two times, 3 times maybe in a portal crawl. It can definitely happen. That was a lot of CP to use. Not exactly my first recommendation overall. However, Shadow Defense is 1 CP less. It's cost for 3. And then you can roll 5 dice instead of 4. 5 dice instead of 4. I would upgrade that every single time. That is pretty much an auto upgrade for me and Michaela, as well as the straights. Shadow Defense and straights. Those are what Shadow Thief wants. Let's go ahead and talk about a couple of unique cards that the Shadow Thief has. One of them is Poison Wound. For 2 CP, inflict poison on a chosen opponent. Early on in a 1v1 match, it can be good, especially if the opponent is having a hard time or doesn't want to get rid of the poison right away. It can be even more powerful late in the game, though, when you know how many cards or what cards your opponent has gotten rid of. If you know that your opponent get that out of there, what status effects and bye-bye, has gotten rid of all of that, and not playing a character like Monk or Seraph who has cleanse abilities, this would be extremely powerful and can definitely take a lot of people out. In terms of minions, this is pretty good overall. Level 3, level 4 minions, just trying to add those additional wounds on there as well. If you're going against fallen characters, you have to be careful because they do like to transfer those negative status effects over to you. Enter the Shadows. This was a very costly card. It is 4 CP, but you do gain shadows. Overall, there are cheaper ways to get into shadows, such as Shadow Dance, Shadow Defense. There's different ways to go about it. Oh, Caesar just kicked my chair here a little bit here. The timing has to be right. If you only have 4, 5, 6 CP, I may not want to play this if I can survive the hit. However, if the last ditch effort, I would play this card. Shadow Meld, that is your promo card. On a 1 or roll a die. On a 6, gain sneak attack and 2 CP. Any outcome, draw a card. Shadow Thief likes drawing cards, likes the CP. Good card to play overall. Shadow Coin, 0 CP, gain 2 CP. If in shadows, gain 3 CP. So you definitely want to wait till you're in shadows to get the most out of this effect, especially it costs you nothing. However, if you're really, really, really hurting for that CP, play the card, but try to get it in shadows best that you can. Sneaky, gain sneak attack, 1 CP. Honestly, there are a lot of different ways to gain sneak attack for Shadow Thief. And Caesar continues to just do what Caesar does here. And luckily we're almost at the end here, so just bear with me, I apologize. I would sell this card a lot of the times. I would just use it as CP. There's different ways to gain sneak attack. I would not worry about it. And then last, 2 more cards here. One of them is Wild Shadow. This is extremely powerful. This is pretty much another Soul Wild card, or twice as wild card. 4 CP. If in shadows, change the value of any 2 dice instead, or change the value of 1 die. Extremely powerful. Definitely keep this best that your ability can. Hopefully you don't get a discard 1 card randomly. This is extremely powerful to have. And lastly, we have Card Trick, 2 CP. A chosen opponent discards a card randomly. Additionally, draw a card. If in shadows, draw 2 cards instead. So obviously we want to stay in shadows most that we can to get the best ability out of these cards. In terms of Dice Throne Adventures, it's not going to be as helpful. I would probably sell that card in Dice Throne Adventures just because the minions don't have a card to discard. However, if you wanted to draw a card, you could, but you're spending 2 CP to draw 1 card, or 2 CP for 2 cards if you're in shadows. I would probably save that CP elsewhere unless I was hurting for cards overall. Overall, Shadow Thief in Dice Throne Adventures, it takes a couple turns to get him really going. However, once you got his CP above, I would say 8, you are really starting to get in the driver's seat. The reason why is because those large straights are going to hit for a minimum of 8 plus sneak attack. Those small straights, a minimum of 4 overall. The downside of Shadow Thief in Dice Throne Adventures is that he does a big attack. However, he pretty much has no undefendable attack, meaning that the minions are going to be rolling defense quite a bit. And minions rolling defensively can hurt, especially if they're able to avoid damage, if they are able to inflict burn, poisons, wounds, stuff that's going to keep the Shadow Thief from spending CP or using CP for attack and instead spending it for buys, status effect, removal stuff. Overall, he is a lot of fun to use. You have to be careful though, if you're rolling 1 or 2 6s, you have to choose. Do I want to go for Shadow Dance? Do I want to go for your ultimate attack? Because he does not have the typical mini ultimate and then the ultimate, super mini ultimate, because he has Shadow Dance and then Shadow Shank. So you have to be careful of that, making sure that you have cards in your hand to help you modify dice as needed. However, if you're using it for your dice, shadows and your defensive role should help you mitigate a lot of damage. So overall, that is the Shadow Thief. He is a fantastic character. Michaela and I played with him and the Barbarian for a Dice Throne Adventures Portal Crawl run through. We played it on veteran difficulty, and it was a lot of fun because she was getting her 15 CP, base damage for large straights. Small straights were still doing 8, and we were running trucks through minions, and it was a lot of fun. Really good time, especially when we're trying to get those shadows and not having to worry about damage. The worst part of it for us overall was probably some stats effects, but overall it was a whole lot of fun and highly recommend trying out the Shadow Thief. We'll see you next time. Take care.